Welcome to the Video Insiders Podcast. I'm Carlos Pacheco.
And I'm Tom Martin.
And we are two annoyed and grizzled YouTube veterans. We've been doing YouTube for many years, managing many millions and billions of views. We worked at many different companies, managing YouTube channels, YouTube networks, and all of the behind the scenes.
I'm glad you said annoyed, because I thought you were going to say two really annoying YouTube veterans, which many people would say we are. But we're trying on this podcast to not be annoying. So
Of course. Depends on the person.
Yeah. Like, for example, I really find your weather talk really annoying, but it's not going to stop me from asking how the weather is in Toronto today.
It's a beautiful day today. It's late October. It's only sweater weather, so we're good. And also, we had a not controversial election just finishing this week. So
we're not getting into politics because that will.
I'm not going to get into it. It's just one of those things that.
Do you guys have pumpkin spice everything?
Yes, unfortunately, it's quite funny. There's a lot of Starbucks in my neighborhood in walking distance. It's like it's become ridiculous. One closes up because I guess for some reason that corner doesn't work, and then like a street later, another one opens up, and it's the weirdest thing in the world. But I'm sort of like, I try to avoid Starbucks as much as possible.
I cannot blame you. I'm not a coffee drinker anyway. I'm a tea drinker, obviously.
Of course
I'm
you
English. And this was something I actually brought up in my VidSummit Talk, super segue, which is what we're going to be talking about today. My recent trip to VidSummit in LA. We're going to let you know how it went and the kind of talk in the hallways, what's going on and what you missed out on if you couldn't make it. But of course, before we jump into today's topic, we must say a huge thank you to our number one supporter and sponsor, TubeBuddy.
TubeBuddy is the ultimate tool for creators to streamline their daily workflow on YouTube, allowing for more time to create content. For brands to help reduce busy work and focus on what matters, helping managing multiple client channels, and for networks, which gives partners the tools for success and an attractive incentive for recruitment. I anecdotally have constantly been recommending TubeBuddy to new clients for the past little while, for a long time, but lately it's been like more than usual, where they're using other tools or they're not using any tools at all. And you'd be surprised the networks and the huge companies that have huge YouTube channels that don't use TubeBuddy and are blown away by the features that they didn't know were right there in front of them. Anyways, we do have a special offer with TubeBuddy.
Yes, you can get an exclusive Video Insiders multi-channel discount by visiting videoinsiders.fm/TubeBuddy.
Awesome.
Thank you, TubeBuddy.
Thank you. Awesome. So we're not going to talk about the weather. We're going to talk about VidSummit, which just ended. This podcast should be out less than 2 weeks after VidSummit ended. I was in full FOMO mode, so I avoided the internet while you were there. And so we are going into this conversation blind. I didn't even prep Tom with the questions I had for him. So my first question.
Tut. Very, very unprofessional.
Yeah, of course. People here maybe don't know what VidSummit is. What is VidSummit? Why does it matter?
Yeah, I think VidSummit is now 7 years old. You might want to fact check that. It's around 7 years old. It was my second VidSummit this year, and it takes place in LA every October. And it's basically the creator track / industry track from VidCon on steroids. It's really aimed at serious creators, either full-time YouTube creators or people that are, almost ready to make that leap into becoming a full-time creator. So really in-depth kind of talking about, really tactical stuff, not just kind of the high-level fluff. The best speakers from around the world, and me, and people, sharing tactics, what's worked for them. Broadened up slightly this year to include like Facebook video. They had a guy from Instagram TV there. TikTok, being spoken about, and podcasting as well, which is not necessarily intrinsically linked, but I think there's becoming more and more overlap between creators that YouTube and people like us that podcast.
Awesome.
Oh, and to kind of talk to you about the people involved, it was the kind of brainchild of Daryl Eves, who's like the OG YouTube expert on YouTube, guy that I really, really respect in terms of YouTube experts. And then later on, he was joined by kind of super creators, Sean Juris, and then this year, MrBeast, who was kind of the headline speaker as well this year.
That's great. I've only been once, and I was there not last year, but the year before. Quite enjoyed it because, again, there was, lots of people talking my kind of talk. I got to connect with people at TubeBuddy, which I hadn't met. I had to connect with a couple of some old school people. Some of the initial founders of Maker were there who were doing new things and all that sort of stuff. And definitely some old school people that have been doing this for a long time. And obviously people who are making a living off of this. So it's less flashy of a conference. And I kind of hope it stays that way because, nobody wants the big fans to show up there, but it's definitely a place to learn from top creators and also the people who manage things behind the scenes who are building tools as well. Now, this year, there was a big change. Well, big announcement a couple months ago was that MrBeast, I guess, purchased VidSummit from Daryl Eves or bought in?
He shares into it is what I believe.
Awesome. And does that change anything? Do you feel like it was something different about it this year?
No, not directly. I would say that generally it felt bigger this year. It was a new venue, and it might have been that it was a bit more, spread out in terms of space. The previous venue was felt a little bit more like you were funneled into, smaller areas. This seemed to be a lot bigger venue. In terms of attendees, I'm assuming more. It looked more, it felt more, but it was, run still very, very, very well. I didn't feel like there were too many people there. It probably will mean, and also with the kind of some of the other speakers, that you will start to get some fans infiltrating. It's probably just an easier way to get to meet someone like MrBeast than going to VidCon or anything else. But it doesn't yet feel like it's VidCon, nowhere near it, in fact. So, but I do think that will probably continue to trend upwards in terms of it being a place for fans, not necessarily to meet and greet and get autographs, but to feel like they're in the same kind of community, in the same kind of world as their heroes. I don't think we're ever going to get to a point where there's sign-in sessions or anything like that.
Admittedly, a lot of the people there are also fans, right? Go there, and this year the big talkers was Casey Neistat and MrBeast, right? So, Casey is sort of a superstars, and obviously everybody sort of loves him. So there is a little bit of fandom there.
Yeah, and of course, I would have loved to have stopped and had a chat with MrBeast, but you're right, everyone is a fan, but not in the same way. They're more of a oh my God, he's a YouTube rock star. Brain. I want to pick his brain on how he does thumbnails. Someone that I was speaking to said that he actually one evening was sat down and spoke with 1 or 2 hours to MrBeast's thumbnail guy. And he said the information that he got out of him in 2 hours was just you couldn't pay for that, which is really the beauty of this conference and really any conference is that it's the conversations that happen outside. Yeah,
I think that's one of the things I've always sort of told people. I've realized over the years that the conferences, I don't want to sort of toot my own horn, but I don't really learn much from the talks, but what I end up doing is having awesome sort of one-on-one conversations and connecting with people that, sort of share my world and, their business opportunities come from those, right? Sort of those hallway conversations and running into people and all that sort of stuff. The networking effect is amazing. Actually we used to have a client called C2, which is Commerce and Creativity in Montreal. And they had this awesome feature part of the conference, which is sort of like this pre-planned networking event where you would connect with a lot of conferences do this, but you would, connect with people you'd go through their website or through an app and connect with somebody you want to talk to. There would be like a designated space. You have a 15-minute, 30-minute conversation. Well, here's what I'm doing. Here's what you're doing. Why should we keep talking type of situation? And VidSummit would probably benefit from a little bit more of an effort on that as well.
Yeah, they did have an app where you could see who else was attending, or at least who else had signed up to the app. And I did manage to connect with a few people through that app. Wasn't the most user-friendly, but yeah, I did have at least one really, really useful conversation that came just through me kind of thumbing through the list and like, oh yeah, I'd love to kind of pick their brains, and just shot them a message within the app, and yeah, we met and had lunch and a really good conversation. So yeah, that was really, really good. Lots of kind of side events, parties, networking opportunities all throughout the day, even, just grabbing a coffee. Everyone was pretty much having lunch. This is a kind of the blessing and the curse of an airport hotel. The curse being that it's, you don't get to see much of the city. And, a lot of my experience of LA is flight to LAX, Uber to hotel, conference, maybe an external meeting, maybe an external dinner, then Uber back to the airport. But at the same time, it means there's not really a lot of ways that people can quote unquote escape. So people are kind of a captive, and you're much more likely to then run into them in the line for Starbucks or, the provided lunch queue, because you're more of a captive audience, because you're literally next to the airport. What else are you going to do? So, that was I think that's quite a smart thing to do. And obviously it really helps for people traveling like me. But yeah, I always think that what I like to call the hallway track is always the most valuable of any conference. And I think we discussed this in our previous episode, which you can find in our feed, where we spoke about whether or not we thought that VidCon, not VidSummit, VidCon was VidCon worth it to buy the ticket, and we spoke about that then.
Again, the older I get, the more grizzled and annoyed I get. So I love smaller conferences and intimate conversations, as opposed to like VidCon again has its benefits, but it's so spread out that, you really need to make an effort to connect with people, and everybody's being pulled left and right. Whereas I feel like VidSummit's sort of like intimate enough that, you can find time and just have a conversation with creators and entrepreneurs that are there. So I've always sort of appreciated VidSummit for that.
This is going to be a really strange kind of piece of anecdotal evidence, but the fact that I know that it's getting a bit bigger and a bit more mainstream, shall we say, is that this year one of the sponsors, one of the headline sponsors, was a company called Purple, which, if you don't know, is a mattress company, which, really to me screams of kind of mainstreamness, that you've kind of crossed over from being a niche audience into an audience that kind of non-related companies want to tap into. Yeah,
you're right. In terms of the fact that they're sponsors, it makes, sort of a weird thing, but also like, I feel like anybody that works on the internet tends to be a little bit more open to buying things on the internet. And I remember from 2 years ago, Purple was actually a speaker. So their head of marketing was a speaker, because they made a couple of viral videos. And again, I don't want to make this about a conspiracy or something, but I know that Daryl sort of works with a lot of brands to create, videos, and there might have been something in the day where he helped them create, those initial videos from a few years back. So they're very good in that space, and they've done very well. So, and again, not to go into a tangent, I still cannot believe there's that many people buying mattresses on a regular basis, that, we need to have so many people advertising for mattresses,
Yeah, there must be the opportunity, but that sounds like a tangent that we don't. That sounds like a tangent we don't necessarily need to go too deep into. That.
So, speaking of smart people talking there, you spoke there. So tell us about your talk. What did you talk about, if people can find it anywhere else?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to talk about how close I came to not speaking. So I'm pretty used to the journey from London to LA. I'm a pretty seasoned vet of doing that and surviving the jet lag. But what I'm not used to is contracting food poisoning suddenly about 6 hours into an 11-hour flight. So I'm not going to go into the gory details, but I was violently ill for about 6 hours, unable to even sit down for fear of either vomiting on someone or just being violently like chucked out of the plane for like making everyone sick. So I made it alive to LA just about, and had to email Daryl and like, Daryl, I'm so sick. I don't think I'm going to be able to talk tomorrow, but I'll let you know in the morning. Managed to have like a really feverish, creepy fever dreams for a few hours. Woke up at 2 a.m. And had made a miraculous part recovery and emailed Daryl and said, just scratch that. I'll do it. So I was fine eventually, just about. Yeah. So the talk was that the next day. The title of my talk was Maybe Your YouTube Channel Just Sucks, which I think was definitely the best titled presentation of the few days. And basically I was teaching people how to objectively audit their YouTube channels as objectively as is humanly possible to see where they were making some really obvious mistakes, how they could sit down and go through their channel with fresh eyes and see the mistakes that they were making in order to kind of plug the gaps and the leaks in their channel. And it went really, really well. If you've ever seen one of my talks before, you know that I absolutely tried to mash in more information than is humanly possible. A few days before the talk, I'd got it down to an hour and 5 minutes, trying to get it into my hour slot. Then I realized that I only had a 45-minute slot. So I somehow trimmed 20 minutes out of it somehow. And then on the day, I think I actually got about 43 minutes due to like set up, and there was someone coming in straight after me. So, yeah, the talk went really well. I had a full house of maybe 300 to 400 people, maybe, standing room only pretty much, which was amazing. A few weeks before, I put the call out on social media to get a willing volunteer to volunteer their channel for me to do like an as live audit on their channel. And the guy was there, Mike Davenport, the Chevy dude. He's a Chevy salesman and a Chevy expert. He was actually in my talk last year, and his channel had grown from like less than 80,000 to 185,000 in the year between 2 VidSummits. But he still had a few things that he could be doing better. And I basically took him and the entire audience through an audit like I do if he was a client. Pointed out all of the different things that he could be doing in terms of SEO, in terms of content, in terms of like optimizing for watch time and branding, tone of voice. And yeah, it went down really, really well. I've really been trying to work on like the showmanship aspect of my talk, and mostly people laughed at my jokes. There were a few where I think they were just too English. I've actually met up with a few people like, I got the British jokes, so you know they didn't all fall flat. But yeah, really good response. Tons and tons of questions afterwards, and tons of people coming up to me through the next few days telling me that they got a lot from my talk, and saying that they thought it was the most actionable kind of talk that they'd heard, which makes me really happy, because I always try to give people advice that is actionable rather than just telling people to be consistent, be authentic, talk about your passion kind of thing. So I try to be the talk that people have the most notes from, because I've given the most actionable advice. So hopefully that came through. I believe you are able to purchase the replays of all of the talks. You'll be able to find that at VidSummit.com. Not sponsored. Yeah, not sponsored, not affiliated to that link. Of course, not just that, but all of the other talks as well. And really, really good turnout. I'm not sure if it had anything to do with the fact that apparently I wasn't there, but on the main stage, so I was in kind of one of the smaller rooms, and the main kind of ballroom where the keynotes was absolutely huge. You could probably easily fit a few thousand in there. In the intro for like the day's sessions, Daryl gave me a really good shout out and told everyone to check out my talk. And that apparently my talk from last year on keyword research was like by far and away the most viewed replay from last year. So that was really cool. A couple of people came and told me that I'd got that shout out. So nice. I'm hoping that, again, I've done a good enough job to be invited back next year. VidSummit is definitely my favorite of all the YouTube conferences. So yeah, always be a pleasure to get back on the stage at VidSummit.
That is awesome. I have to admit, there's something you said about being actionable, right? And recently I started consulting with this big YouTube company. I kept poking at them. The reason I got the mandate is because I was talking to the CEO and saying like, why aren't you guys doing this? Why aren't you guys doing that? He told me, it's like, why don't you send me an email with everything, you see wrong? And I did that. And then, what I always find weird when I do that is that I know that somebody internally is going to say, yeah, we can do that. Like, why is this guy coming in and doing it? But what happens is they don't, right? They just don't do it. Finally being able to sit down with them and seeing what's been done, what's doing, and then realizing that they've talked to a lot of the big YouTube consultants out there and all that sort of stuff. And what the consultants do is essentially what you just said, right? They say like, oh, better thumbnails and all these sort of things. They tell you to, tone and voice and all that sort of stuff, but they don't actually sit down and hold your hand and say like, do this right now, right? Yeah. This situation. So to a point where now I'm literally going to be working hand in hand with their channel managers to sort of say like, hey, you need to do this specific tactic now. Like you're focused on a lot of other things, but this needs to be done as well. So it's these actionable sort of strategies and tactics that we often focus more about is not as flashy. It doesn't get the big sort of viral, article that's on a tube filter, that everybody talks about. But these are the things that really get our channels going. And I feel like, this is the most valuable stuff that I've gotten from VidSummit in general. Again, I got nothing negative to say about previous keynote speakers, from VidSummit that I wasn't necessarily thought was a valuable keynote speaker, but fine, they're popular. But, and again, this year, Casey's awesome, but he's not going to tell you, the actionable things that you need to do on a regular basis to grow your channel. And I think, speakers like you are sort of the bread and butter that really makes it valuable. Whereas the Caseys and the MrBeast of this world are sort of the flashy, sort of let's get the masses in type of situation. Alden.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I didn't catch either of those. In fact, I hardly caught any talks at all because I was either in a meeting or I was preparing for my talk or sick. But what I did hear that MrBeast talk was in fact very, very actionable. And he was even opening up, well, not necessarily opening up live, but showing screenshots of Photoshop and how he works on thumbnails and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's definitely one of the replays that I can absolutely not wait to watch. As I say, I'm really there to use the hallway track to find clients and build relationships and look for new ideas and projects. So for me, it's always the replays where I can really deep dive and get my notepad out and nerd out over some stuff that I might not have known before.
Yeah, and just like Tom said, this is not a sponsored endorsement, but the year before I went to VidSummit, I spent the money to watch that replay, and it was very much worth the money to watch those talks. And it gave me serious FOMO, and I made the effort of going there the year after, which was great. And again, anecdotally talking with YouTube networks, YouTube companies that have built a YouTube business, I actually send them, I say don't go to VidCon, go to VidSummit. That's the type of, that's where, your channel managers will learn more than schmoozing with anybody or even being on a panel at VidCon, which, is a flashy conference. But VidSummit is where you're going to get that hands-on tactical learnings that will help you.
Yeah, and so I was going to say one thing that I also noticed that I didn't mention, that the types of people attending were becoming more industry as well. So I recognized faces from London that I'd never normally see at VidSummit, but they would be at VidCon. major media companies, agencies that have never had a presence at VidSummit before. So definitely it's becoming like the go-to event, I think, for anyone that's serious about audience development, definitely.
So we're almost done here. A couple more questions. Other than the usual, there's a couple of people that are sort of staples at VidSummit, Matt Gillen being one of them. That's sort of like, always sends this great sort of insightful presentation. But, he gets attention, so he doesn't need more attention. Are there any breakaways? Anybody out there that talk there? You did say that you didn't go to many. So is there anybody that you heard through the grapevine that, other than yourself, of course, that blew people away, that was really, insightful, that people should check out?
People were really falling over themselves about MrBeast talk. So I think he's got not only has he got the cachet and like every single video that is released this year has hit 10 million, but also I think he did actually get tactical. So I think people will really appreciate that. So I'm definitely going to check that out. Not so much the couple that I've heard of, but the couple that I was desperate to see, but I didn't get to see, was one from a guy called CeeLo, who is from an AI company. And he kind of did like a cameo in Daryl Eves' keynote last year. And although he wasn't the world's most polished presenter, the kind of stuff he was talking about was just like beyond, he's got his own AI company and he's probably got access to all sorts of information that I can only dream of. So can't wait to watch that one. And also there was a guy that I met in the hallways that I was speaking to in a conversation with, Ryan from Superbam. Also check out our interview with Superbam from a few weeks back. And he was telling me that he had done a really big case study about how people were using the community tab to really drive engagement and views. Mm-hmm. And I think he actually did a double team with Mark Robertson, our good friend. So that is also one that I really want to see, because he's not actually the first person that's spoken to me about the community tab, even in the last few weeks. So really this could be a trick that I'm missing out on and that a lot of people are missing out on. So any kind of case study that can make me consider using a feature that I'm not necessarily utilizing, I think would be really useful. So,
okay. So my last question of the day is any sort of like takeaways from it, surprising things that you heard or trends or what everybody's worried about. Like what's the sort of vibe on the street?
Yeah, definitely the kids stuff is striking the fear into many, many people's hearts, and probably that's probably justified. Mm-hmm. Who knows exactly what's going to happen in January, but I think people are very worried and looking for answers. And it's not really people are asking me like, what can I do? There's not really much I can offer. It's one of those, suck the air through your teeth moments. I'm not sure there's much anyone can do to help, but apart from wait and see, and hopefully they'll try and think of some other monetization fixes as soon as possible. But yeah, that was definitely a palpable kind of feeling across VidSummit, is that kids is kind of really in trouble. And I definitely think there were less people speaking about the kids space this year. Might be a coincidence, might not be, but that definitely seemed to be the kind of big trend.
I mean, let's face it, creating kids content, and again, I'm not saying it's that easy, but there was a point where it was, right? It's sort of all you need to do is put some nursery rhymes out there and then things would just happen, right? So let's face it, it is what it is. And funny enough, like again, I was doing some consulting with companies, they're asking me, it's like, what can we do with the kids? I'm thinking, my wholehearted advice, kiss YouTube's ass. Like seriously, pardon my French, but like if your channel has momentum, and specifically for companies that are established production companies, make sure content's already on the YouTube Kids app, or get in touch with your rep. Just like Daryl actually recommended this, like, get in touch, make sure you're in there, because that'll be the only monetization option that sort of like to help you out a bit. And also, like, on a side note, sort of a little bit of a self plug, in a couple of weeks I'll be speaking at YMA's in Toronto. It's called the Youth Media Alliance. It's all the kids production companies and all that sort of stuff, and it's going to be a discussion about discoverability. And I'm going to literally tell everybody, it's like, you're kind of screwed. You're kind of screwed in this space, and the only way you can win is by partnering with somebody that already has a channel, and that channel is vetted through YouTube. And even then, like, the monetization might be not great, and you need to start thinking about YouTube as a marketing platform, as it has always been, and just use it to market your brand and send people towards a place where you can really monetize, and you'll be a winner. That's honestly, that's the best way to that's my opinion when it comes to that.
Yeah. But then, of course, you know, who knows how effective that will be now if discoverability is majorly affected. I just don't think we're going to know until January 1st, which seems to be D-Day for kids stuff. And in case you've got no idea what we're talking about when it comes to kids stuff, check out a couple episodes back where we talk about the FTC ruling and what it means for kids content. I think this really struck a chord. Carlos, I think we got a lot of feedback around this episode. Probably more private feedback than public feedback. I'm not sure how much people want to say publicly about it. You know, check out that episode. I think that's one of our kind of deeper investigations, shall we say.
We got a lot of, like, a little bit more downloads than we usually get on that one. It was the episode's called The FTC Ruling and Kids Content on YouTube, released September 22nd, 2019. Are you going to I think you said to us already, you're obviously going to try to speak again next year. So obviously it's an endorsement that, it's worth it to go. At first I didn't want to go this year. I was sort of like, a couple months before, I was like, I don't need to go. But like literally 2 weeks before, I was like, God damn it, I should go. Feeling a little bit FOMO-ish. So whenever I feel FOMO-ish, I tend to avoid the internet. Again, it's credit to what Daryl has built, which I think is much needed in this industry. Great. Thank you very much, Tom, for being the subject of my interview. Again, a big thank you to TubeBuddy, our sponsor.
And TubeBuddy, who are one of the vendors at VidSummit.
Exactly.
So I got hi to Phil and the TubeBuddy team.
Yes.
And I can't believe it. I forgot to take my free TubeBuddy t-shirt, which I'm kicking myself over because I just kept putting it off.
Just as a side note, Phil showed me what they're working on, this new tool that they have, and it's pretty slick. I don't want to say anything because he didn't, sort of give me permission to talk about it. But TubeBuddy's definitely, constantly innovating, sort of pushing new tools. And I think this one's going to be a great one for creators.
Yeah. So thank you, TubeBuddy. And remember, you can get a exclusive Video Insiders discount by visiting videoinsiders.fm/TubeBuddy. Quick like, share, subscribe.
If you're enjoying this podcast, please give it a share to your community and the people in your life that work in this business and are interested about YouTube and the behind the scenes of things. We appreciate a review on Apple Podcasts because that's the only place that really matters when it comes to reviews. And obviously, give us a shout out at hello@videoinsiders.fm if you have any questions and want us to talk about anything specific. Tom, anything on the calendar for you noteworthy at this point?
I'm actually off to speak at some other events in the States in a couple of weeks, so getting ready for that. And then I don't think I have anything else travel-wise till next year, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this or not, but I'm pretty sure I'll be speaking at VidCon London early next year, seeing as it's in my backyard.
Yeah, it's easy for you. Awesome. Yeah, for me, I'm just doing a little bit of client travel between Montreal and Toronto with a bunch of like media companies that are looking for help on the YouTube side of things, which tend to be getting a lot more inbound on that side of things, helping people understand content ID and help them with their libraries and stuff like that. So it's been great.
They're obviously very smart people listening to the Video Insiders.
Exactly.
Podcast.
Yeah, it's true. Actually, somebody specifically called me to help them with a big telecom company YouTube strategy because they heard the FTC episode and they're like, hey, we need to talk. That was the situation. So it was great. Thank you very much for listening, guys. And I say guys, everybody. And we'll see you guys on the next one.